If you are a married man or woman and your relationship is going smooth and well, everything seems perfect, and then suddenly you stumbled on an information that your partner is planning a secret divorce, what will be your reaction? This is the story of Ada. At this time, she felt like someone in a house, and suddenly the roof of the house was removed and rain drenched her right inside the house. My name is Adora Nwosu, Ada for short. I used to believe that love, when wrapped in loyalty and patience, could weather anything. Or maybe truth is the saying, love isn't enough. I used to believe that my husband, Thomas Nwosu, was the kind of man who would never betray me. Until that morning, I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. I only wanted to check a shipping confirmation for the art pieces I had ordered from Lagos. Thomas had left his laptop open, a rare thing, and I thought, let me just use this quickly. So I sat, moved the mouse, and the screen came alive. An email window was open. The subject line read, "Divorce Strategy." At first I froze. My heart slowed. My mind didn't understand what my eyes were seeing. Maybe it was work. Maybe a client. Thomas, my husband, was an investment consultant. He handled all sorts of personal cases. But then I saw it. My name, Adora, right there in bold. And below it, one sentence burned like fire through my chest. She'll never see it coming. I couldn't breathe. My hands began to tremble as I scrolled down, line after line, through all his messages with a lawyer named Barrister Jude Anozie. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan, detailed, deliberate, ruthlessly intentional. Weeks gone into this plan. They had discussed everything: how he would file first, how he'd secure certain assets, and how he would make me look ungrateful, like a pampered woman who didn't contribute to the marriage. She has too much sympathy on her side. One message from the lawyer read, "We must build a case that she is emotionally unpredictable." Thomas had replied, "Perfect, I will handle that part. She trusts me completely. She won't see it coming." I stared at the screen, numb, my vision blurred with tears that refused to fall. This was the man who kissed my forehead every morning before leaving for work. The man who told me I was his peace. I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop across the room, but I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I did something I didn't even know I was capable of. I became still, deadly still. My breath slowed, my tears froze, and a calm, cold, and razor-sharp emotion began to fill me. I read every email, every attachment, every whisper of the seat they shared, every text message. Then carefully, I took screenshots of them all, one by one. My fingers stopped shaking after the 10th screenshot. I was in control again. I saved everything into a folder on the desktop and transferred them to a private email address I'd created. When I was done, I deleted my footprints and shut down the laptop. Then I sat back and stared at it. At the laptop that had just opened the door I could never close again. A single thought echoed in my mind. He thinks I'll never see it coming? Fine. He'll never see me coming either. Later that evening, the house smelled of jollof rice and grilled fish, Thomas' favorite. I cooked it deliberately. When he walked in, humming to himself, briefcase swinging, he smiled, that usual tired smile. "Ah, my Ada, you've outdone yourself tonight," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "It smells heavenly." I smiled, a soft, practiced smile. "You deserve it," I said, dishing his food like nothing had happened. He talked about his day, his clients, a new deal in Abuja, some stock that might rise soon. I laughed in all the right places, nodded when I was supposed to, even poured him a glass of red wine. But inside me, something had shifted. The woman sitting beside him at the table was no longer his Ada. She was someone else now, someone silent, calculating, unbreakable. That night, after we said goodnight, he kissed my forehead and drifted off to sleep, snoring softly, peacefully, like a man who believed he still ruled his world. Beside him, I lay awake, eyes open in the darkness, listening. When his breathing deepened, I turned slowly, reached out for my own laptop under the bed and opened a blank folder. I titled it the Freedom Folder. That name would soon mean everything. Inside it, I placed every screenshot, every detail, every evidence I would need. And I whispered to myself, not in anger, but in quiet determination, "You wanted a war, Thomas. You just picked the wrong woman." When a woman who has lost everything to betrayal decides to be calm, then you must be afraid. That is dangerous. Adora Nwosu had just entered that phase, the kind that comes before a storm. The next morning, Thomas left for work as usual. He kissed me goodbye, oblivious. I watched him drive away, his car disappearing down the street. Then I exhaled for the first time since yesterday. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where everything had started. My mind was clear now. I had no intention of fighting with emotions. I had seen enough betrayal in business to know that the smartest revenge is quiet, precise, and final. Before Thomas met me, I was already somebody. I didn't marry into comfort. I brought comfort. At 28, I had built Emberline Ventures, a logistics company that started from one delivery van and grew into a multi-million-dollar enterprise across West Africa. When my parents died, I poured my grief into work. I made deals that men twice my age hesitated to touch. I stayed out of the spotlight, let my male managers take the public credit, but every major decision had my signature on it. By the time I met Thomas at a conference in Abuja, I was worth over $400 million, but he never knew that. Of course, he asked, and I told him I was just doing okay. I had learned early in life that too much honesty can make people greedy. He thought he was marrying a comfortable woman with some inheritance. I never corrected him. It was easy that way. Now I realized that not being totally open was my shield. That morning, I opened the Freedom Folder again and began to write. Identify my assets, place bans and restrictions on them before he could touch it. Plan to leave this betrayal quietly on my own conditions and terms. I called my accountant, Thega, using a secure line. "Madam Ada," she said, careful as always, "how are you doing this morning?" "Thega," I said calmly, "I need to review all my personal and joint assets privately." She hesitated. "Privately? I hope everything is fine." "Everything is perfect." I lied smoothly. "I'm just restructuring. I want a full list by tomorrow morning." "Understood," she said, tone shifting. "I'll prepare it myself." Next, I texted Barrister Chinelo, my long-time business lawyer and silent ally. "I need to see you, but not at the office." She replied instantly. "Understood. My house, 8 p.m. tonight, alone." I smiled. Good. Then I reached out to Michael, an old university friend, now an expert in asset protection and offshore trusts. Hello Mike, it's Ada. I need you to help me with some jobs. Okay, he replied. I'll meet you at any chosen venue of your choice. I exhaled again. The web was forming. My allies were already in motion. Thomas lounged on the couch, watching a football match, laughing at something on his phone. It's night again. He's back from his work. At this point, I started paying attention to all his moves. He didn't notice me watching him from the kitchen door. His relaxed shoulders, the way he scrolls and types quickly, possibly still emailing that lawyer. At that moment, I feel a strange peace, the kind that comes when you finally stop expecting loyalty from the wrong person. He glances up and smiles. You're quiet tonight, my love. Everything okay? I smile back. Perfect, Thomas. Everything is perfect. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I wasn't after revenge. I was after freedom. And freedom for me meant one thing: taking back my loyalty, submission, respect, and love I'd given to someone who never deserved it. It's 8 p.m. and I'm at Chinelo's house. Chinelo looks at me. You look calm, Ada. Too calm. What's going on? Thomas is planning to divorce me. Secretly, he's working with a lawyer to hide assets and ruin my name. What? Are you sure? I saw the emails myself, screenshots, conversations, everything. He said she'll never see it coming. Now I want to make sure he never sees what I'm about to do either. Chinelo leans back to the wall, crossing her arms in shock. Well, you've always been 10 steps ahead of everyone, Ada. What do you need from me? You're lucky most of your holdings are still in your name. But joint accounts, properties, those might get tricky. You'll have to move fast. Then let's move fast. And Chinelo, no calls, no emails. We talk face to face only. Chinelo nodded, slowly understanding the gravity. I'll start drafting the assets transfer document. You'll need your accountant's full cooperation. Don't worry, Chinelo. Already handled. She thinks it's restructuring. To be honest, Chinelo, this isn't just about money. It's about peace. He betrayed me. He doesn't just get to burn my house and walk away smiling. Ada, you have my full support. You always know how to win your game. Over the next 7 days, I became a shadow of my own life. By day, I was a perfect wife, cooking, smiling, listening to his stories about business and friends. By night, I was an architect, dismantling the empire he thought he controlled. I started with the joint accounts. I left just enough money there to keep him comfortable so he wouldn't suspect a thing. The rest, I moved quietly to a private trust under Emberline Holdings. Then I turned to the properties, the duplex in Ikoyi, the apartment in Dubai, the land in Enugu. He had convinced himself he owned half, but every property document bore my signature. The legal transfer began that week. Ownership titles shifted like quiet waves on a still ocean. I didn't shout, I didn't confront him, I didn't warn him either, I just acted. The silence became my greatest weapon. On this fateful evening, Thomas walks in, tie loosened, looking slightly distracted. Ada, you've been quiet lately, is everything okay? Just tired. Work's been intense. I smiled gently through the words. He studied my countenance for a moment, uncertain. Then he turned and dropped into the couch. You should rest. You worry too much. I've got us, you know that. In my thoughts, you had no idea that I was the one who had been carrying us all along. I smiled, sit beside him and placed my hands on his shoulders. A perfect act. You know, Ada, I've been thinking maybe we should take a little trip next month. You've earned a break. What do you say? I replied, that sounds lovely. Somewhere quiet. Maybe Cape Town. Thomas said, exactly. You deserve some peace, my dear. Besides, I think it's time we evaluate our marriage a bit. Don't you think? My heart pounds, but my face remains serene. Of course, darling. Whatever you think is best. He nods, pleased with himself, but unaware that the walls around him are already collapsing. Now I have a meeting with Michael. Michael comes in. Ada, it's been years, but you sound like a woman on a mission. What's happening? Michael, I need to move certain assets offshore, quietly and legally. You know how to do that better than anyone. Michael responded, that's not small talk, Ada. Are you talking millions? Yes, Michael, 400, maybe more. Michael whistles, eyes wide. You've been busy, Ada. Yes, Mike, I built this empire from scratch, and I'll be damned if someone tries to take it from me out of greed and betrayal. Michael nods, his tone turning serious. All right, Ada, I will set up a private trust in Mauritius under a new holding entity. Everything remains traceable to you but invisible to him. He will never find a trail unless you hand it to him yourself. That is perfect, Mike. I want it done in 6 days. Consider it done, Ada. You're always the smartest person I know. In my thought again, sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's power preparing to strike. The next day morning, Thomas getting ready to walk. I walked into the room and then he said, I might travel next week to Abuja, then maybe Port Harcourt. Some clients' issues. I responded, all right, how long will you be gone? And Thomas responded, a week? Maybe 10 days, depends on how it goes. In my thought, perfect. That was the time I needed. I smiled sweetly and handed him his jacket. Fast forward to next week. Thomas is ready for his trip. Safe travel, darling. Call me when you land. He responded, always, my love. I love you, you know that. He kisses my forehead and leaves. The moment the front door shuts, my entire expression changes from sweet to still. I have 2 whole weeks. I'm sure he's returning to make the move, but by then, there will be nothing left for him to take. I continued to execute my plans. The transfer was completed, everything working just fine. By the end of the 2 weeks, every plan had been completed, documents sealed, signed, printed, everything has been completed. Back home, Thomas walks in looking tired but cheerful. Ada, I'm home. I meet him at the door, arms open, smile, flawless. Welcome, darling. How was your trip? He responded, stressful but productive. I've missed you. We sat for dinner. He talked about his meeting, about a few things he's been working on. I sat quietly, listening, nodding, and hiding my knowledge of his betrayal behind polite smiles. By this time, every coin, every penny he thought he could reach had vanished beyond his grasp. Every property, every investment, every dollar locked away under my control. He thought he was preparing a divorce. He didn't know I was preparing his defeat. The next day morning, Thomas said to me, Ada, I spoke with my lawyer this morning, just business things, nothing serious. I smiled. Of course, you're always working, my dear. You should rest sometimes. You sound like you're planning something. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm just thinking about the future. He chuckles, oblivious. He continued knotting his tie. I watched him silently, eyes soft but distant. He had no idea that within the next 72 hours, the future he thought he was designing would vanish, and I wouldn't even raise my voice to do it. He left for work and I went to Barrister Chinelo's office. to get things sealed up and finalized. Barrister Chinelo said everything is in place. The trust is complete. All assets are protected. Your company shares, properties, accounts, everything, they are all sealed. The only thing left is your petition for divorce. Once this is signed, we file immediately. In my thoughts, he planned to file a divorce first, but I'll finish it first, quietly. And I said to Chinelo, make it clean, Barrister Chinelo. No noise, no drama. I just want to walk away. Barrister Chinelo responded, you are one of the calmest clients I've ever had. And I responded, calm is the reward of preparation. I handed over an envelope to Barrister Chinelo containing all evidence. Keep this, Barrister. It's everything. If he tries anything, expose the mails, the documents, all the lies, and the truth will be exposed. That evening, Thomas storms through the front door, face pale, holding a letter. Ada, what is this? You filed a divorce without even talking to me? I looked up from my tablet into his face. Yes, Thomas, I thought that was what you wanted. You've been preparing for weeks, haven't you? His face twisted, panic behind his anger. What are you talking about? I stood up slowly, walked towards him, and stopped just a few feet away. I know, Thomas, about Barrister Jude, about your emails, about your divorce strategies. She'll never see it coming. Remember that line? Thomas freezes. His jaw tightens. His breath catches. Thomas responded, Ada, you don't understand. That was just... And I caught in a joke, a mistake, a misunderstanding. You were planning to destroy me, Thomas. But you forgot who I am. You forgot what I built before you ever came along. He tried to speak, opened his mouth, but no sound came out. While you were drafting files, filing for divorce, fully yourself, I saw it and I went ahead. I protected my assets. I protected the truth, every kobo, every property. They are all gone from your reach. And you know what? I didn't even have to hide it. You just never looked deep enough. Thomas began to apologize. Ada, please, can we fix this? I was angry. I wasn't thinking. I responded, you were thinking perfectly well, Thomas. You were thinking like a man who thought he owned his wife. But here is the thing about women like me, Thomas. We let you believe that for as long as it serves us and keeps the marriage. Thomas steps forward, desperation creeping into his tone. Ada, please, don't do this. Let's talk. We can start over again. I looked at him for a long moment, almost pitying him. And I responded, you already started something, Thomas. I'm just finishing it. I picked up my handbag and car keys. And Thomas asked, where are you going? Home, I responded. This is your home. I turned around sharply and paused. No, Thomas, this was your illusion. My home is wherever I am free. I walked away towards the door. Then I turned slightly. You will receive the papers officially by tomorrow. Chinelo will handle the rest. I suggest you get a good lawyer, not Jude. He's compromised now. I turned and walked out the door. Thomas stands frozen, staring at the door long after it's closed. The reality begins to sink in. Everything he thought he controlled has slipped through his fingers. I didn't look back when I left. There was nothing left for me in that house except memories. And even the memories, I plan to erase them and create new and better memories. I boarded the flight under my business allies, the same name I held my new trust and accounts. By the time Thomas realized what had happened, the bank notifications would tell him the story. I wasn't running. I was simply reclaiming ownership. Now Thomas pacing up and down the whole office. How could she? How did she? Questions unanswered. And then his phone buzz. It's an email from Chinelo Law Chambers. He clicked it open. Dozens of screenshots flood the screen. His own emails, every detail of his betrayals. each message stamped with his words. His bones became weak. He sank into the chair, face in his hands. He wanted to humiliate me quietly. Instead, he humiliated himself loudly, all because of greed. In the end, I didn't need to fight. I didn't need to scream or expose him to the world. My victory was silent, the kind that follows when you walk away from chaos with your dignity intact.